welcome to the Ghost of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 240 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 14 of A Feast for Crows, that's Brienne 3.
And as always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you, unless of course you have the spoiler buy me a coffee tier, then we will spoil it for you. And hopefully we're going to provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to a television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes to provide some additional information about the characters and other things of note in this chapter. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. I just came from dinner, and I said to Stacy and Molly, hey, has anything interesting or funny happened to me this week?
I was really relying on you this week, Mackelly.
We're just so focused. We're down to the last 2 weeks of Molly's high school life.
I mean, all the photos and everything you've got to take.
Right. Yes. Every day.
Her penultimate Monday, going to school, coming back home from school.
Exactly. Yes. And but it's just, we're all, every day there's some sort of senior thing, it feels like, especially starting next week. I took off all next week, because we've got something like every day. The principal has said, because Molly's class was the first class to come into 9th grade, into high school, affected by COVID, that she really, since they came in with such a fizzle, she wanted to send them out with a bang. So she's really been ramping up the activities.
I don't understand, but I understand the words you're saying, but I understand nothing else.
How about you? How are you doing?
My mother took a fall and she's been in hospital for a couple of days. So,
oh gosh, you did not tell me this ahead of time.
Bit of a stressful week. But
yes.
She's home now, but
okay.
We just got a photo of her with a black eye. It's
my
she's been
goodness. 8
rounds. But seems to be doing okay. So, but I may at some point have to go visit. But we'll keep the podcast going. Don't worry, listeners.
Well, I'm sorry to hear this. You did not prep me ahead of time that this was coming.
Yeah. I like spontaneous reactions, usually on the funny side, but occasionally on the negative side too.
Yes.
But my soccer team has won again.
Oh wow! Okay.
I know. We really like it in the Last Chance Saloon, and we're there for a third week now. So we play again next week against the team that beat us 8-0 in the regular season.
Well, hey, things have to go better than that this time around.
Presumably. They are definitely more afraid of us than they were when they beat us 8-0, because we have now got a couple of wins under our belts and a little momentum in our sails.
That's right. Okay, well, keep us all posted, of course.
Yeah, well, I finished, finally, I finished The Three Body Problem on Netflix.
Oh, okay, yes.
Did you?
Good stuff, yes. We watched it straight through pretty much every night.
Yeah. It was really enjoyable. I at first I was like, it feels like they're going to mess with this way too much, but it captured the spirit of the book, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too.
I also thought, can I tell you this? I thought Tatiana looked like your daughter.
Which one is Tatiana?
She is the true adherent who murders everyone.
Oh, yes.
Can you
wow.
see it?
I will have to go look. I remember the character now.
Yeah.
Now I'll have to go look her up and see.
Yeah. And I can see Molly being a, brainwashed murderer.
Right. Well, she did play Regina George, so she's got that that iconic antagonist evil streak somewhere in her there.
Okay, I will tell you one thing. Lucas told me a joke this week, and it is right up your alley. You're going to like this joke a lot.
Okay, let me hear it.
Why are the Norwegian military painting barcodes on the sides of their ships?
I can't even begin to come up with an answer for this.
So when they come into port, they can Scandinavian.
Oh, I get it. Well done, Lucas. Well done.
I thought you'd like that. I've got one for you. This is good, actually. Okay. You'll like this. So, I know you've got some concerns about my brain.
It's very intelligent brain.
Yeah,
I will
thank you.
say for
That's
certain
kind.
it's,
But you have some concerns too, right? You think there are things that are not quite right in my brain.
the memory sometimes is a little bit sketchy.
Well, I think I've added a new strand to the things that concern me about my brain, because I too am concerned about my memory. When I remember, I have some concerns about my
Right.
memory. But
Fortunately, you then forget and you're
yeah.
blissfully unaware.
So my friends and neighbours, Natalie and Alex, have a dog. They're only fostering this dog, but it's very cute, and we've spent a lot of time with them, and so we've got to know this dog. And this dog's name is Pixie.
Okay. Cute name for a cute dog.
Uh-huh. And from the minute I saw this dog, they said, "We've got a new dog called Pixie. Come and visit it. We've got a new dog called Pixie. Come visit it." I thought and could not shake the idea that this dog was called Crystal.
Just randomly changed the dog's name.
Exactly, right? Okay. Now that's weird and strange, but maybe something about this dog triggered this thing.
Sure. Yeah, I get it.
We got a new intern started work this week at our work, and I made a point of having lunch with him on Monday. So his name is Alec, and I IM'd him and said, "Hey, Alec, you want to have lunch? I want to talk about your project," kind of thing. And he was like, "Great." And I back and forth with him, and I called him Alec every time. And the instant I met him,
you called him Pixie.
I was convinced this kid was called Sean.
Well, it's better than Pixie.
I couldn't shake it. I was like, I had to bite my tongue on speaking his name because I knew I was going to get it wrong. I kept thinking to myself, his name is not Sean, but that's what I want to call him.
That's what I'm going to call him. You're Sean to me now, buddy.
Exactly. Poor kid. I mean, like, as well, he's such a baby, he's like 20 years old or something,
Yes.
And he's in his first proper job. And I mean, it's just an internship, but I mean, he gets a wage and he's expected to do things. But if I got his name wrong day one, it'd be like, crushing blow.
Right. Well, maybe it's a good way for him to realize just what the corporate world, how insignificant the individual person is in the corporate world.
Yeah. From now on, you will be known as Sean.
Until we call you something else.
He's a tall glass of water, though, and he plays soccer, so I have my eye on him for next season.
Yes.
Well, anyway, enough of this frivolity. Let's get down to business. How did we leave Brienne of Tarth? So last we saw of Brienne, she was in Duskendale searching for Sansa. Intel was limited, and her best lead was a story of a fool seeking passage from Maidenpool for 3 people. It's pretty thin pickings. She decided to head that way. En route, she finally made contact with the rider who had been shadowing her this whole time, and it turned out that it was Podrick Payne, who she agreed to travel with in the hope that his knowledge of Tyrion might serve her in her quest. Mackelly, why don't we give the summary of this one?
All right. Well, Brienne, or Brienne, as Roy Treese would say, and Pod are on the road to Maidenpool, as you just mentioned. Brienne recognizes landmarks from her journey with Jaime in the other direction. Along the way, she's been drilling Pod each night to improve his sword work. She is judgmental of Tyrion's lack of attention there, too. Pod is a willing student, although still far behind where he ought to be. As they near the town, they ride with a farmer and his wife who are pulling a wagon of eggs to town for the forthcoming wedding of Eleanor Mouton and Dickon Tarly. Their ox was taken by wolves.
Like everybody they meet on the road, they haven't seen a fair maid of 10 and 3, possibly travelling with a fool or a knight. I feel like I'm chanting a mantra. I read these words so many times.
With auburn hair.
Yes. They have more information on Maidenpool. It has mostly been rebuilt thanks to the presence and the iron will of Lord Randyll Tarly. Brienne hopes to avoid him as she owes him a debt, but doesn't like him very much. At the gates, the egg farmers are terrorized by the soldiers who plan to steal the eggs and rape the wife. Brienne draws her steel.
She's surrounded but ready to go down fighting before the intervention of Ser Hyle Hunt, a lieutenant of Randyll Tarly. Brienne has history with Hunt. When she arrived at Highgarden to pledge her sword to Renly, Hunt and some of the others were very sweet and kind to her, bringing her gifts, singing her songs. The number of suitors and their acts of devotion were reaching a crescendo when Randyll Tarly interceded. Seems there was a pool to see who could have her maidenhead. He ordered the men to desist, but ultimately he blamed Brienne. An army was no place for a woman other than a camp follower, and if she insisted on sticking around, she should expect to be treated as one.
So Brienne loathes Hunt and resents Tarly, but Ser Hyle saves her here. He orders the eggs returned, the farmer to deliver them as intended, and he insists on accompanying Brienne inside. She wants to go to the Stinking Goose, the inn where she hopes to find Nimble Dick, but Hunt wants to present her to Tarly first. They find him issuing brutal and summary justice in the town square. Cheats, rapists, thieves have well and truly met their match. Tarly's view on Brienne hasn't altered much, and he wants to ship her back to Tarth, but she presents the letter from the king and confides her true purpose.
He says that Sansa's not here, nor would she be in the Vale, as her aunt is dead. That's news to Brienne. Tarly dismisses her, and Hunt offers to show her the way to the Stinking Goose, but she, in turn, dismisses him in what seems to be a clumsy attempt at an apology. Without guidance, it takes her a while to find the inn. There's no sign of a goose, but otherwise it lives up to its name. She pays the innkeep to nod her toward Nimble Dick when he arrives. She obliges for a fee.
When Dick Crab finally arrives, Brienne offers to buy him drinks. He launches into his story, propelled by a stream of bribes from Brienne. He offered to help a frightened fool make it across the narrow sea. The fool said he had 2 girls with him, but couldn't risk the ports in Maidenpool. So Dick took him and the girls along the shore to an old, now unused smuggler's cove up past Cracklaw Point. Dick offers to take Brienne there for a large sum of coin, pointing out that he is from the area, and warns Brienne of the Whispers, a keep built by a mythical ancestor of his, Sir Clarence Crab. She warily agrees to the plan.
Okay. Well?
Yeah. So, it's another layer of the onion that is Brienne's tortured past life. You know, people are pretty terrible to her, universally.
Yes. Terrible. That's the right word. Such cruelty, you know?
Yeah.
This is a story with true monsters and innocent people dying and starving on the regular in this story. And, okay, what they did might not rank with that level of terribleness, I guess. And unfortunately, probably things similar to this go on at plenty of high schools around the world, but that does not make it not awful or so hurtful for Brienne having to go through this.
I'm with you. I think you're hinting at you're almost as affected by this as you are by the mass murder and the torture and what have you. It's just because it's way more relatable. You can,
yes.
You know, the starvation and the torture. You know it's awful, but it's abstract to you. Whereas the bullying and the meanness to this poor girl is all too believable and understandable.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
And you know what?
Right.
I will say, my son. I don't know if he's just nice. I suspect not. But it seems like the kids at his school were nicer than I ever anticipated them being. There just seems to be less of that than in my day. When I was at school, you were just bounced from bully to bully, you know?
Yeah.
Even the kids you liked would bully you.
Right, your friends. Well, your so-called friends.
Yeah, exactly.
I think there's been a lot of anti-bullying campaigns and efforts.
And I think it's
especially.
worked. I do think it's worked.
Yeah, I think they start them young, you know, early elementary school. They start talking about anti-bullying. And I also think, I believe I'm correct with the school that Lucas went to as well as the school that both my kids have gone to. But they are enormous compared to my school.
It's true.
Molly's graduating in a couple weeks. More than 600 kids in her class. I mean, that would be probably close to 3 classes of my high school. And so I think these bigger high schools, we've gotten way off topic, but I think these bigger high schools are more like small colleges where there's less cliques and people just hang out with their friend groups, and there's there's not as much like the cool kids and the not cool kids and you know, that kind of thing.
There's just too many of them for there to be one group of cool kids and one group of not cool kids.
Yes.
Just by the sheer numbers. It's interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
No, we're off topic, but I don't think we're too far off topic.
Well, one thing he said to her that stuck out to me was kind of one of the last things he said to her was, "It was only a game. We meant you no harm." And I just thought, what a thing to say. They humiliated and disrespected her and made her the butt of the joke for the whole camp. And then he says, "It was just for fun. We didn't mean any harm by it."
Yeah. But you know what? That rings true to me. I mean, a typical bully of that ilk would honestly
Yes.
think that. It's not like he's lying to her at this point. He's telling
Right.
her the absolute truth. We were having fun. We didn't mean for you to get hurt.
Yes,
But
I think you're right. Yeah.
just one iota of self-awareness would make you realize that she was going to get very hurt.
Yes. Yeah, mean it or not, it could have been very harmful to
Yeah.
Brienne.
Yeah. And it was anyway, even though it didn't come to fruition, it was still harmful because
Yes.
she had, for the first time in her life, she had people being nice to her in a romantic way.
Right, and instead of enjoying it, all she kept thinking was, why is this why are you being so nice to me? That's what she wanted to shout to them.
Right. And what you want for her is for those suspicions, which she's going to have because she's insecure, to be dispelled because this guy or these guys have all fallen in love with her, etc., etc. But no, she was absolutely right to be suspicious, and now her suspicions are confirmed, and they'll never be shaken.
Right, yeah. It's like prime evidence. Of course, this is just a fictitious story, but prime evidence of the prefrontal cortex not developing until age 25. I never did anything like this in high school. I think I was a fairly respectful young man, but I definitely did dumb things that I hadn't thought through the consequences of.
Yeah, well, that's
especially like driving and things like that, like
Yes.
taking corners
Yeah.
too fast and stuff.
Yeah.
But we do possibly see where the term "the Maid of Tarth" comes from, because all these men were vying for her maidenhood.
Right, yeah.
Ser Hyle I found him to be a bit of a mixed bag in this chapter. At times, I felt like he was feeling a bit repentant, but he seemed disappointed when she doesn't just let bygones be bygones. But he says in this chapter, he says awful things to and about her. One of the very first lines out of his mouth is, "She's as mean as she is ugly, and there's no one uglier." And then when they get inside the gate, he comments that the Roundsy, the horse that Podrick is riding, is the most hideous horse he's ever seen, and he's surprised that Brienne's not the one riding it.
Yes. Yes. It's funny. His sort of parting shots make you think he's penitent, but you're right. You think back on all he did in this chapter, and the penitence is bizarre, out of character. I wonder if seeing Randyll Tarly, I mean, maybe it was just sort of like, maybe it wasn't particularly well written, and his random change of character was not caught by the editors, but maybe it was seeing Randyll Tarly, because I would imagine that Randyll Tarly dressed down those boys pretty badly for what they were doing. Even though he blamed Brienne, they're
Right.
knights, they should not be doing this,
Yes,
And
that could
Randyll
be.
Tarly, he's a horrible person, but he wouldn't stand for that kind of thing.
That could be. Yeah.
And so seeing Randyll again reminded him of his, I should not be like this.
Or yeah, that's very possible. Possibly also he fell into old habits around being around her, and then realized, wait, I'm too old for this. I've seen too much. What am I doing?
Can I just say, I do like his name. Ser Hyle Hunt is a great name for a villainous character.
It is, yes. The alliteration there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, an alliterative character. There are so few. I have to remember Hyle Hunt for the future.
And his sigil is a dead deer strung up. It's just perfect, really. But he says, "You're not even going to thank me for saving you at the gate," and she says, "I'm going to thank you someday in a melee," and he responds, "Like how you thanked Red Ronnet." And I just wanted to remind anybody who's thinking, that name sounds familiar, but I can't remember what he's referencing there. She was betrothed to Ronnet Connington, a.k.a.
That's
Red
right.
Ronnet. And he came to Tarth one time when they were both young and brought her a rose. And she couldn't even look him in the eye and speak the simple welcome that she had been taught. And when he gave her the rose, he told her that was all she was ever going to get from him because he had no interest in marrying her. So I'm assuming that's the thanks that he's mocking her about there.
Yeah.
But we get a cool full circle moment. Not cool because it's actually kind of sad and tragic in a way, but we do get a full circle moment from when Kat was in Renly's camp outside of Bitterbridge, and she was shocked at the green, naive nature of Renly's host, and she referred to them as knights of summer. And now we're hearing about how many of those men either have died or have been dismembered from battles. And Brienne thinks we were knights of summer, and now it's autumn when we're falling like leaves. So we've, they did get their unfortunate seasoning, and many of them lost their lives because of it.
Poetically done, Mackelly.
Yeah, you like that?
Oh, I wonder how Brienne feels about that. I wonder, because, obviously she was, sibling in arms with them, but also they have this history of them being awful to her. So I'm wondering if she's like, I wish we'd won. Kind of glad you're dead.
Yeah, well, there's a thought that goes through her mind when he talks about several of the men that were in on the pool to try and win her maidenhead. Several have died. One was missing an arm, and she thinks good. And then she remembers their faces, and the one had a monkey, and she remembers that they were people, and she is kind of unsure how to feel about it. So yeah, I guess she has mixed feelings.
She's better than they are then.
Right. So one thing that happens is Brienne is thinking about one of her engagements because she had been betrothed several times, and how the boy died. And if he hadn't died, how different life could have been for her. He was the second son of Brian Cairn, and he died of a chill. Actually, his whole family was wiped out. Lord Brian, his wife, the second son that she was betrothed to, and all of their daughters died from the same chill. You might remember Bryce Cairn was the only Cairn to survive. Bryce the Orange, and he has a bastard brother named Roland Storm who also survived. Bryce died at the Battle of Blackwater. Roland is the Castellan of Dragonstone, and he actually is the one that helped smuggle Edric Storm out of Dragonstone with Davos. Anyway, I found this little bit here where she was thinking about how her life would have been different, kind of fascinating because of just how a single event can shape a life so much. This boy dying of a chill changed the course of her life. And, if he doesn't die, she thinks she would have been married to him and be raising children right now. And she thinks to us that this is not the first time she's had this thought. And it makes her sad and relieved at the same time. Yeah. And I really wish she had expounded on what she meant by those feelings.
Yeah, well, all right, to speculate, because when I read it, I sort of took it in my stride. Obviously, she's sad. The person who was betrothed to her passed away, and she had the life that she might have led was taken from her.
Right. Yes.
And that life would have protected her from a lot of the awfulness she's experienced since.
Yes. Yeah.
But she really likes being Brienne of Tarth. She doesn't celebrate it very much, but she likes the fact that she won the melee to become the Kingsguard to Renly Baratheon. And
that's the relieved part, that she didn't.
Absolutely. Yeah. She would never have got to do that otherwise,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. My one thought was that she's sad that she's not in the traditional role of mother and wife, possibly, and relieved that she might not have been cut out for that role.
Right.
And so she avoided it by him dying. But also possibly sad that if he hadn't died, she might have been stuck in that role, and she's relieved because she's doing now what she loves. Like you said, she's a warrior, which is what she wanted to be, and she's won melees, and she's out on a quest at the king's command.
Yeah, yeah.
So
This chapter offers further proof that Randyll Tarly, who we know primarily as Sam's father, is an absolute monster. I mean, not in the Ramsay Bolton, Joffrey Baratheon mold, but hardly less monstrous in his own way. I mean, what he said to Brienne is just so unconscionable. I mean, she was the victim of a cruel and misogynistic and brutal joke that was being played on her, and he doesn't waste any time with any sympathy. He shuts it down, but he blames her for it, which is astonishing, you know. And the worst part about it is, I mean, maybe he'd never seen her fight, but it's like, she's useful. She wants to be here, and she can handle herself in battle. Why throw that away, you know?
Just because she's a woman, right?
Yeah. There's plenty of examples through history of warrior women. She's not the only one. Maybe she's the only one now.
Yeah. Yeah, clear. It's certainly, you know, her memory of it anyway, certainly comes off as him not being comfortable with Brienne as a warrior, slanting the view to cast blame on her, hoping that she will agree and leave, I think is
yeah, exactly.
What was going on there. Yeah. Just a new way for him to be a monster.
Yeah,
Plenty of evidence with Sam.
Yeah. So there's more rumours about the Hound raping and pillaging his way across the eastern Riverlands, this time with a band of 100 outlaws. That's weird, because again, who's he with? Is it him? I speculated that he'd been brought back by the Brotherhood Without Banners, but they're not really outlaws in the sense that the citizenry would not call them outlaws. They're outlaws in the Robin Hood sense, not in the steal from everyone who goes past you sense, you know.
Right.
Whereas the rapers and pillagers of this world, that sounds like a different group.
The brave companion type.
That's more like it, yes.
And why in the world would the Hound be riding with the brave companions? You know, we talked about this in the Cersei chapter when Cersei and Kevin were discussing it a little bit, and we were skeptical then. It just didn't fit what we know or what we think we know about the Hound. The experiences that we've had with him, there's certainly some issues there, we'll say. But it just didn't make entirely sense. But, you know, he had a near-death experience. Maybe he's, maybe it's changed him.
Or I'm still of the potential belief that he had a more than near-death experience.
Oh, right, yes.
An actual death experience, you know.
But him riding at the head of 100 men seems equally unlike the Hound. He just
that's true.
Doesn't come across.
I would think it was his brother, but his brother is also as equally near death. So
right, yes. I don't think it's the Mountain either. I think that's pretty safe.
So Podrick Payne comes across as a good kid, which I think we've known all along. But one thing I'll mention here is that he goes missing from the chapter when steel is drawn and. He's not there by her side, it seemed. You know, it seemed like she was on her own. But that being said, I'll come back to her being on her own in that fight later on.
Yes, right. Yeah, we kind of skipped over it in the summary, but we get a kind of sad, tragic story about Podrick's history as well. It's full of abandonment. His father died, I believe it was in the Greyjoy Rebellion. His mother left him with cousins and ran off with a singer. His cousins then treated him like a servant, and the cousin he was a squire for died on the Green Fork. And ultimately, he ended up with Kevin Lannister, who then shipped him off to Tyrion, and now Tyrion left him with no warning as well. So no wonder the poor boy lacks for self-confidence. Everyone he's ever known has abandoned him or died.
You just reminded me of something there. Do you think that sometime in his past, George Martin's girlfriend ran off with a singer?
Maybe, yes. I know where you're coming from.
He has got it in for those guys.
He does. Yeah. It certainly explains why not Martin, but why Pod is taking it so hard that Tyrion left him and he's searching the Seven Kingdoms for him. Seems like the healthiest relationship he's ever had.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But it's good that he's with Brienne now because, she's a earnest, honest, loyal individual, and, and he's young. He's 13 to 14, still young enough to rebound from a poor start. Dr. Honda thought that Joffrey still had a chance. So if he could still have a chance, then Podrick certainly would.
Pod's a good-natured kid who's going to practice his swordplay. So yeah, he'll be fine.
And we get news of another wedding. Weddings are just popping up left and right here in this story all of a sudden. Sam's little brother, Dickon Tarly, is getting married to Eleanor Mouton. So congratulations to young Dickon and Eleanor. I found it a little bit surprising because the Tarleys are one of the top houses in the Reach. And I found it a little bit surprising that they're marrying the Moutons. Not that the Moutons are any major slouches, but, the Tarleys are kind of a big house, an important house.
That's an interesting sort of thing to think about with regards to sort of status, because obviously the Tarleys fought for Renly to begin with, and then they're loyal to Highgarden, right? That's where their loyalty lies. And so now they've come round to they're one of the strongest houses within the Reach, and so Highgarden seems to be on a upswing, in terms of its power. So you definitely might have thought to cash in on something a little higher.
Yes.
But yeah.
Yeah, it just seemed, I don't know, just seemed like maybe, I hate to say that too good for the Moutons, but just a little bit too upper tier. You're just channeling your inner Randyll there. I guess so. Although, if Sam had not been sent to the wall, maybe it would be Sam marrying Eleanor. Yeah, Mouton.
Exactly. Yeah. It was slightly strange to me that Brienne should seriously risk her life to protect that farmer and his wife. I mean, it was horrible what was happening to them, but if she throws herself into every battle to protect the innocent and the misused along the road, she'll never find Sansa, and she'll be dead within about 12 hours, I would think. I mean,
yes.
Because that kind of thing is going to happen a lot. She got very lucky that she got to meet Hyle Hunt again, because I don't think she survives that, even with her prowess.
They surrounded her with their blades, I mean, she was in trouble there. And she didn't look like she was going to yield. Didn't sound that way.
Well, I mean, once you've drawn steel against soldiers, they're going to want to fight you,
Yeah. And one thing that annoyed me in this scene is when Hyle Hunt does arrive and, kind of calms things down and sends the farmer and his wife on their way. The farmer calls Hyle a true knight, but there's no mention of thanks to Brienne for putting her neck out like she did.
Had Brienne not been there, Hyle Hunt would have been sucking down a couple of eggs.
Right.
I also think that Randyll Tarly and Brienne are a little bit premature in ruling out the Vale just because Lysa is dead. And I'm not just saying that because in my omniscience I happen to know that's where Sansa is, but also simply because of the spread of information. That news is fresh, and Sansa travelled some time ago, and the news would only be available to those who engage in gossip along the road, which Sansa most assuredly would not have done. Had she done, everyone would have seen a maid of 3 and 10, fair of face, auburn of hair.
Yeah, she enters Maidenpool on the right track, thinking that if she doesn't have any luck at the Stinking Goose, she's going to take a ship to Goldtown and then to the Eyrie from there. And, I was like, stick with your gut. Just stick with your gut.
Right, but Lysa's dead, but that doesn't mean Sansa didn't go there. Might mean Sansa leaves there very quickly, so you might want to bust a move and get there even faster.
Yeah, I thought there were 2 bits of info worth discussing that Randyll Tarly says to Brienne here in this chapter, and that's one of them. Sansa's not at the Vale because Lysa's dead. And like you said, the logic, in my personal opinion, again, I as well know that she is actually there, so it's hard to be completely objective here, but just because Lysa's dead doesn't mean that Sansa's not at the Eyrie.
Right.
There's no timeline on when Sansa may have arrived at the Eyrie. If she did so before Lysa's dead, she doesn't just disappear from the Eyrie when Lysa dies, unless she was pushed out the moon door as well.
If Randyll Tarly said Sansa Stark was in Maidenpool when the news of Lysa Arryn's death came, then I might say, okay,
Yes.
maybe I won't go to the Vale then. But clearly that wasn't the case, you know?
And even if Lysa died before Sansa arrived, her family feels like a more solid set of leads to follow up first than Dantos. And sure, the Eyrie is harder to get to than Crackclaw Point, but it just feels like a higher percentage opportunity to follow her family before you start following random paths on random fools and such. But
yeah.
So that was one bit. The other bit is that Tarly says that Littlefinger is currently in control in the Eyrie and therefore the Vale, and that it's not going to last very long because the Vale Lords aren't going to support what he calls an ump-jump jackanapes whose only skill is counting coppers.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't sound like Randyll Tarly has the highest regard for Littlefinger.
No, but I would think that's how Randyll Tarly would describe me as well. And I'm none of those things. But
well, of course, we've seen Littlefinger do more than just count coppers. He's rather skilled at plotting and scheming and manipulating, and we just saw a pretty masterful manipulation of Nestor Royce in the last Sansa chapter. So,
yeah, and then the news that he's there, would that possibly sort of like ring that bell again about Sansa? Is it possible that Sansa... I mean, nobody but Littlefinger knows of his connection to Sansa in the sort of sense of having been in love with her mother and sort of wishing she was his daughter and also wishing she was his lover. Those are secrets, but there must be, I don't know, there must be, it feels like there would be some connection, some awareness that they two knew each other. And the fact that he's there, could it be that she's with him? Would he?
Good point. Yeah. Yeah, because everyone, I mean, I don't know if Brienne knows this, but it's a pretty well-known fact that Littlefinger fostered at Riverrun with the Tully girls.
Right,
Edmure.
Exactly. Yeah.
And he's been spreading it around everywhere that he took both of their maidenheads.
Well, yeah, she probably hasn't heard that, but she would have known the first part. And so knowing how she feels about Catelyn Stark, it's not that big of an extrapolation to think that Littlefinger might also feel the same way about Catelyn Stark, have her some long-term debt to her.
Yeah.
And therefore, maybe is sheltering Sansa, who, not saying that he, secreted her out of King's Landing after the murder, but that when she traipsed up to the Eyrie to find her aunt dead, he didn't immediately turn her in.
Yes. Right. That would make that it's just enough more information to say if she was there, she might still be there.
Right. Yes.
Or if she was heading there when she found out, she might still continue to go there.
Yes. If the person in charge of the Eyrie now was Cersei Lannister, I wouldn't bother going to the Vale to see if Sansa was there.
Right.
Because if she is, she's already dead.
Yes, she's laying next to her aunt's body 600 feet below. Yeah. But Tarly hopes that Sansa, he doesn't believe that she's in the Vale, of course. He hopes he thinks she's gone back to the north. And he hopes that Sansa chooses right regarding which northern lord to escape to. And we know that's not the case, but if it were, she would need to be careful there because the Boltons are out, the Karstark's likely out, and plenty of other northern houses back them at the Red Wedding, and now Roose Bolton is the Warden of the North. So others are probably backing him as well, at least outwardly.
If she did turn up at Carhold, I wonder if the Karstarks would be like, you know what? We could marry her.
Yeah. Yeah. They could marry her to, I think, the Harrion, the oldest one, is still alive, I believe.
And so then the heir to Carhold becomes the husband of the heir to Winterfell.
Yeah. Puts them in a very powerful position.
And they jump that way. All right. So the last thing I wanted to talk about, I mean, almost that's almost true. Almost the last thing I want to talk about is the sort of sexism and misogyny in A Song of Ice and Fire. One writer who I like about this is Lee Butler. She has a blog which goes chapter by chapter, and I often sneak a peek at her as well. I'm looking for inspiration, and so she was talking about it in this chapter a lot, and she's conflicted about how grateful she should be to George Martin for the way he writes, because he definitely shines a light on the subject for sure, and his writing about Brienne in particular is poignant and sympathetic and possibly thought-provoking too. I mean, I don't particularly find it thought-provoking because I like to think I'm not misogynistic and sexist, but if I were, like Hyle Hunt, reading and knowing sympathetically about Brienne might make me second guess my actions, kind of thing.
Yeah, right. I can see that.
And never underestimate the value of stating the obvious to the ignorant. This.
Sure.
Yeah, but she has trouble with George Martin's willingness to then wallow in the misery of the world that he's created. And that's sort of like why she's sort of conflicted about. I mean, he's definitely sympathetic to Brienne, but he definitely never lets up on it,
Yes, yes. It's one sad thing after the next.
Yeah. And then the question is, would the occasional chapter where Brienne's happy and having fun undermine the story? Or seem frivolous?
Right.
Or undermine your own writing about how awful her life is? I mean, yes, it would to a certain extent. So I'm just saying, it's extremely difficult for George Martin here. He's created this world where misogyny and sexism are rife, and then he holds a mirror up to it and says, hey, people should think about this, but it's his creation, and it is awful.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in right there.
Yeah,
a lot of really good thought-provoking ideas. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I like it in that it's thought-provoking. I don't like it in the subject.
Understood.
Nature.
Yes. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know what you do, because the thing is, if Brienne rode into Renly's camp and was accepted on her merits, it's just not a very interesting story anymore.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah, she's overcoming adversity and creating drama, and drama is how you build a story.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
Right. So the chapter ends with Brienne meeting Nimble Dick, Dick Crab, and she's as you mentioned in the summary, she's plying him with coins and drink, and she's getting the story out of him. And the story is that this frightened fool shows up, keeps trying to buy people drinks, sailors drinks and stuff to get off of Westeros, and that he's looking for passage for him and two girls. And unfortunately, it does fit a bit. Frightened fool with two girls looking to escape Westeros.
Yes, the two girls shouldn't fit because Sansa was one girl, but then Arya Stark is in the wind somewhere, and there you go. Yes. I mean, how would you not assume that, wow, Dante's had them both under wraps somehow?
I could solve both of these riddles with one swoop there. And the fool panicked when Tarly's men came into taverns. It's not a perfect fit, but it's close enough to raise your senses, And
yeah, for sure.
Coming from a con man doesn't help with the believability, but coupled with the news of Lysa's death and Randyll Tarly saying, "I can tell you Sansa's not in the Vale," it might just be enough to redirect you to a different path.
Yeah, this is certainly a lead worth following. I just don't think she should have abandoned the Eyrie just yet,
Yeah, right. Well, maybe she's thinking, Crackclaw Point is much closer than the Eyrie, so I'm going to go out to Crackclaw Point, explore that. If not, I'll come back to Maidenpool and then go to the Eyrie. Maybe.
The one thing about that is, though, I mean, presumably he put this fool... Although, how did he fool this fool?
So the way he fooled... It was a little bit confusing how he fooled the fool. So what he did was he told the fool, yeah, you can't just go out on a regular ship because you look like you're very much not wanting to be noticed by Randyll Tarly's people. So I know a place, a smuggler's cove, that I can take you to, and there you can catch a ship from a smuggler. So he sent him out to the Whispers. But what he didn't tell this fool is that no ships have been out to that cove in about 30 years. So he sent him to catch a ship where no ships are coming. That's how he fooled the fool.
Right, but then...
What did he get out of it? Why did he do it? That's...
More importantly, why is he leaving Brienne there? I mean, is he assuming those three are still wandering around the Whispers looking? I see.
I think so, yes.
Because I was assuming that he actually delivered them to a boat and that they were therefore gone. And I was like, if you're Brienne, why are you going to that sea? You can get on a ship. There's nothing to stop you.
Yes.
But that makes a bit more sense now. But it's also kind of cruel of him to the fool and the girls.
Yes.
To basically abandon them in the middle of nowhere.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, what did he get out of that? That's a little more complicated, I guess.
I noticed something in the book, and it never registered with me, but I see it in the notes here, that Nimble Dick made the coins he was being bribed with dance across his fingers. And I noticed him doing it in the book, and I never made the connection, but now I see it written here. We've had a character do that with a coin before, haven't we?
Right. So Brienne notices him do it too, and she thinks she doesn't like that. She doesn't like him doing that. And the alchemist in the prologue did the same thing with the coin that he gave to Pate. And of course, he was playing Pate false, and Pate ended up dying because the coin was poisoned. So I'm not saying that Nimble Dick here is poisoning this coin, but could he be playing Brienne false, just like the alchemist was playing Pate false? Could this possibly be some sort of signifier from Martin that he uses when someone is making a dishonest transaction? And I swear there is a third instance. I just can't figure out where it was.
But you're not going the extra mile and thinking that Nimble Dick, who should have been quite drunk and therefore was surprisingly nimble with the coin dancing across his fingers when he was quite drunk, was in fact the alchemist.
Oh, I did not go that far, but yeah, right. I had not made that much of a leap to this point. I was just thinking he's someone that seems very sketchy. And he's doing the same thing the alchemist did. So maybe it's some sort of like false deal thing.
I like it. A symbol of dishonesty. But also I like keeping an eye on the fact because it felt like he was a derelict drunk. And a derelict drunk should not be able to do that.
Well, maybe that's why he's so nimble. That's where he got his nickname from.
All right. Brief interlude for spoilers. Join us with the higher levels of the Buy Me a Coffee Sustainer tiers. And you can listen to what we say next. All right, do you have some background for us?
Yes, I do. So the farmer says that Lord William Mouton was a coward who hid in his castle in Maidenpool while the town was destroyed and his people killed. He adds that William's brother Sir Miles wouldn't have hid. He was as bold as brass until Robert killed him. So here's what I can tell you about the brave Sir Miles. He was actually squire to Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, and was knighted by the prince himself. So he did rub shoulders with some pretty lofty people in Westeros. The two actually remained pretty close friends during their time together at court. Miles did indeed die at the hands of Robert Baratheon. We talked about the Battle of the Bells when Arya was at the Stony Sept. It was the battle during the rebellion where Robert had been hiding due to an injury from a previous battle. However, during the fighting at the Stony Sept between Ned's and Hoster's rebels and the King's force led by Jon Connington, Robert emerged and, despite his injury, slew 6 men, and unfortunately for the Moutons, one of such men was Sir Miles Mouton.
Interesting. Well, in comparison with the television show, none of this happens. The book might have dwelt on Brienne's wild goose chase, but the TV show cut it out, basically. Sometimes the TV show was smart.
Well, they're certainly saving time. They only have 10 episodes to work with.
Exactly. Pedantry Corner, nothing, really. I mean, again, there's some, like you said, Ser Hyle's change about face midway through this chapter is a bit strange, but it is just character decisions, and it just felt a little unrealistic. And also, Pod's near invisibility while Brienne is facing down certain death. I don't blame him, but he's proven himself brave in the past. So.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point. He's good at whacking people from behind.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, pedantry's tough right now because we can't just really make stuff up, you know? If we don't have a lot of news and notes, we can add something.
We can wing it.
Yeah, pedantry, we can't just make up things that didn't make sense. So, it is what it is.
I wonder if he started spending more time on the books, and that's why there's no pedantry.
Maybe.
There's going to be none in the Winds of Winter. Not a shred.
That's right. He's had more than a decade to get all the
pedantry. I think he's going to be locked
pedantry
down.
Maybe he's just spent more time in the world of, Planetos.
But the potential for pedantry just grows with that, though, you know?
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, you could do pedantry corner on our mistakes, you know?
Oh, yes. Yes, you could.
Should like that Pardon the Interruption show on ESPN. We should do like at the end. Here are all the mistakes we made this week. You know?
That would be something. Maybe we could do that for our sustainers.
Yeah. All right, nuisance. Well, if we knew we were making the mistakes, we'd correct them. We'd fix that in post.
Yes, we have.
And we have. When you hear my voice suddenly going up and down, it's because we're splicing things back together. When you suddenly hear me shout, "Not!"
There's been, I'm pretty sure, over the past 240 episodes, there's been a few times when I've actually come on and recorded, "Oh, we got that wrong." I'm pretty sure I've done that a time or two.
All right, let's do news and notes.
Okay, well, George Martin provided more updates on the behind the scenes of The Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, The Hedge Knight. We told you last week that it's expected to run in 2025, but now Martin has posted on his blog that most of the auditions are done and more casting announcements should be coming soon. They've got their actors for Tansel, for Steely Pate, Baelor Breakspear, Arion Brightflame, among others, and sets are also being constructed, such as the lists for the tourney at Ashford Meadow. He provided a really cute video of young Dexter Sol Ansel, who will play Egg, having his head shaved to become Egg. And George Martin did add that if all goes well and we get our 3 seasons for the 3 existing books, he's hoping to have written more Dunk and Egg books by the time we get to the end, after he finishes Winds of Winter, of course.
Of course.
So, he's got to move quick, which he's certainly known to do. Oh, I will say, I posted that video on our Discord server and Facebook page. So it's very cute watching the little boy get his head shaved. He's a very cute little boy. And check it out.
Did you ever see the same video for Millie Bobby Brown, whose name I just love? I love to call her Millie Bobby Brown, getting her head shaved to play 11 in Stranger Things.
I have not seen that.
She had long hair. She was a little girl, she had long hair, and they shaved it all off. She was as cool as a cucumber about it. She did not. It was as if she was getting her nails trimmed. She did not care one iota. I was like, well, good for you.
Good for her.
Yeah. We couldn't find any new reviews this week, so just a reminder that it would help us if everyone would leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We lag on Apple for some reason, and the reason we think is we don't get as many reviews on there, and it's sort of like a chicken and egg thing. So if you could, even if you don't listen to us on Apple Podcasts, if you could go over there and give us a 5-star rating, we would be forever grateful. And if you do leave a review while you're there, we will definitely read it out. We keep an eye on them.
That we do.
All right, let's conclude. So Brienne's odyssey continues. She's making assumptions on the sort of large-scale intelligence that are perhaps ill-advised. Sansa is no more likely to have known about her aunt's death than Brienne was until she found out about it.
Very fair point right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And just because her aunt died doesn't mean Sansa's not still there if she was there before her aunt died. I will add that in there.
Brienne's treatment in Renly's camp was awful, but not miles outside what she was used to. In fact, it was a little bit outside what she was used to, because it was covert meanness instead of the usual overt meanness.
Right. Yeah. At the beginning of this chapter, she's kind of, when she's talking to the farmer and the farmer's wife is looking at her like, I can't remember, some animal with two heads. I can't remember what the animal she says. And she's thinking about the different ways that women are cruel to her. And, it's overt ways for the most part. And, here, I think part of the real cruelty was the maddening nature of her unable to figure out why these men are showing her attention. She just cannot believe that it's because they're truly interested in her. And that's just a whole nother way of being just so...
Yeah.
They mockingly call her Brienne the Beauty. And, it's just everything about it. It's just so unnecessary, so juvenile, so sad and shameful.
But Randyll Tarly was both her savior, but also just doubled down on the torment, because she has nowhere else to go. This is what she's chosen for her life, and she needs to be accepted for what she is. And he does the exact opposite. He says that she is exactly asking for what she's getting by trying to be something that she isn't. But she is. She is this thing.
She is. And I can't recall off the top of my head if Randyll Tarly was at the melee at Bitterbridge when Kat arrived and she beat everyone, including Sir Loras.
Right.
But, I feel like she should at least prove the fact that she is a capable warrior.
Exactly. Hyle Hunt did seem genuinely penitent right at the end. And as I said, I think partly that's because he probably got lambasted by Randyll Tarly back in Bitterbridge when Randyll Tarly busted the plan open. Even though, I'm sure Randyll Tarly was sincere in blaming Brienne, but I'm also sure that he lambasted the knights involved, the young men involved as well.
Yeah, Hyle mentioned some punishment, the fact that he's not off on the hunt for the hound like his brother or cousin, I can't remember.
Is still punishment from the whole Brienne incident?
That's what he said. It's your fault that I'm not out there covering myself in glory. But Nimble Dick, he's a shady one. You got to be real careful here, Brienne, with this guy. He could be leading you into an absolute trap.
Yeah. All right, next week we have another victim of Randyll's tender ministrations, his son Samwell.
Yes, and a character who features in this chapter will also get a mention in that chapter, and I don't mean Randyll. So you'll have to tune in and find out who it is.
I don't believe it. Well, I'll believe it when I read it. All right. There's 4 ways that you could help us. You could leave us a positive review, particularly at Apple Podcasts. That would be awesome. You could buy merchandise at ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com. You could buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostsharrenhal. There you can also join us at the various sustainer levels. There's a tier to match your budget and interest. The upper tiers get you the spoiler section. Make a donation directly to our cause at our website, ghostsofharrenhal.buzzsprout.com.
And if you're looking for more ways to interact with us and keeping up on the latest Ghosts of Harrenhal news and developments, well, I suggest you check us out on our social media. You can follow us on Twitter at Ghost Harrenhal. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, and YouTube.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.